Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil. And, we've talked about some of this stuff before, but it's been a while, and I wanted to revisit the 3 biggest regrets I have in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I've done a lot of just, internal thinking about this, where I was like, what are some of those, regrets I have, and kind of, give you guys the advice that I learned from those situations. Sometimes I think it's hard to go through this game and, not realize the mistakes that you've made, right? Or think oh, I've been perfect, but you've not, there's a lot of things that you've done wrong. And I think sometimes, we get in those positions and we don't want to learn from them right away. The only way to get better is to learn from the mistakes that you've made. And I want you guys to learn from my mistakes so that way you don't make them in your own account. So I hope this helps you guys understand some of the mistakes I made and learn from those, what's the wording I want to use here? Learn from them and get better yourself. So let's get in here and let's hopefully save you guys some of the pains that I've gone through. So the first one kind of comes off the back of me taking a massive break from August of 2018 until April 2020 when I came back during COVID. Now, my account when I came back in April of 2020, I had 3 million galactic power. For some of you, it's hard to fathom that at that point in the game, 3 million GP was a pretty solid account. And there was no relics back then. So I was a very competitive player at that point. For free to play. It was very different to be free to play at that point in the game than it is now. But all of that said, I was a very competitive player, did everything right, was, very engaged with the game. I just got burnout, and I think I got burnout because I didn't have a clear focus. And at that time, I have to say, the game was lacking a little bit of that. Now, I didn't realize that we were on the cusp of getting Jedi Knight Revan and then Darth Revan, and there was a lot of stuff that came shortly after that where I would have been a lot more engaged. So, I regret that, but that doesn't count for this because we, that's you took a break, okay, Phil, end video. No, it's coming out of that break, right? I came in April 2020, and I didn't have a lot of focus, and I got really intimidated by trying to go for Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. And I just got intimidated because it looked so, I'm it's going to be forever. And what I didn't realize was that, if I go back at that time, I was only missing Sith Trooper and General Hux. Every other First Order unit in my account was 7-star. They might not have been highly geared, but they were all 7 stars. So that meant I could have easily started farming the rest of the ships that I needed for Finalizer, which some of them I also already had at 7-star because I'd played the game for that long. I had a lot of those ships that you needed in the First Order, and in, I think the ones I would have needed were the Bounty Hunter ships, which, because I already had the other stuff, I would have been very easily farming Kylo, day one, I could have done that. And I didn't because I got intimidated. I was relics and all this stuff. I'm not going to have the time. Not recognizing and realizing that that's what I needed for everything in that game. I just wasn't, the advice I'd got was go farm Geos. We need to get Wat Tambor, farm Geos. Well, the amount of time I spent in the Cantina getting Geonosian Brood Alpha and then, sharding other stuff, I could have made significant progress towards Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. That, to me, was one of the biggest mistakes I made because it set me back, not just in, oh yeah, you don't have as good of a character, but, the Sith raid, I wasn't getting as good of rewards because I didn't have Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. But to, continue on with that, when the Challenge Pit raid came out, my account still significantly struggled because my first GL was Sith Eternal Emperor, who was terrible in all raids. He was terrible in all raids. So I had, Sith Eternal, which, he helped in PvP and stuff, but in terms of raids, he was awful, and I really needed those raid rewards to, progress with Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. So that, to me, was a huge mistake of just getting intimidated by that galactic legend that would have actually benefited me the most. And it's why I tell you guys not to shy away from some of those GLs. It's why I tell you guys, some of them, hey, let's hold off because you're going to need a bunch of this stuff. But from some of them, that Jabba, Leia, JML, like doing that early, it sounds like a lot of work. Executor, it all sounds like a lot. But it's trying to set your account up for the most success possible, that maybe you suffer a little bit for a time and then you reap the rewards of that moving forward. So I really, really try to encourage players that, push yourself and maybe take on some of those things that are a bit more intimidating, and you're going to be a lot more successful. The next one I have has been around just the way I've handled guilds. And there's some where I quit earlier than I should have. There's some where I should have quit a long time before that. Some I should, there's a lot that I've done wrong. And I think the one that there's a point in time where I felt I really messed up was, and again, this kind of leads into, not getting Kylo. We had a bunch of players leave my one guild and they wanted me to join where they were going. Now, I would have been the weakest player in that guild by a wide margin at that point. Now, they were still going to let me in, but I would have needed to do a whole bunch of stuff to get ready that I just didn't feel like my account was ready for at the time. I don't think that was a mistake. But the guild I stayed with, we struggled. And it got to the point where my account was outgrowing 90% of the guild. Which, that's not good. I wasn't the best player in that guild, but my account was growing at a rate where I needed to move up. And I stayed too long. And it stagnated me for a while. Like, I felt where my account was really losing spaces, was losing places, was, not progressing like I would want because I just couldn't get the rewards I needed. And that was something that plagued me for a while, where I didn't want to move on when I knew I should have, because I had this sense of loyalty to guilds. And loyalty is a great thing. Like, outside of Swago, I can tell you, like, I'm a very loyal person. Not just like to sports teams or like my wife, but to like friends and people. Like, if one of my friends called me right now and was like, Phil, I need you to come to my house, like, this is going on, I'm there. Like, that's the kind of guy that I am. If you need me, I will be there for you. I will try to move heaven and earth, and if I for some reason cannot, you have my full support, and I will do whatever I can to help. Right? That's who I am. And Swago, I needed a bit of that selfishness to be more successful in this game. And I feel I would have been a lot better off and in a much better place with my account had I made some of those decisions earlier. And that, leads into kind of like, I'd be very curious where my account would be if I never took that break. And then if I did, be in more competitive guilds even. Like, I just would be very curious. Obviously now Sigma Mandos is exactly where I want to be. This is the guild that I think has been the best fit for me in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I preach a lot about how amazing this guild has been, and that's not just glazing. Like, you can see it in my roster. But I do wonder sometimes what my account would look like. One, if I never took that break, but also took the break, but I farmed Kylo, got them earlier. What would my account look like now? Because I probably wasted a good 3 to 4 months of my early time coming back to the game, just kind of getting pulled in all sorts of different directions by my guild leader, who was a very good player, but I think had a bit of what I would call Arnold syndrome. And Arnold syndrome is this attitude that people get where they take everything Arnold says at face value. Lord Vader's trash, this is trash, that's trash, this is the, Imperial Troopers are the GOAT, everything. Not realizing that, like, his account is in a much different place, or he's got, access to things that you could only dream of. And so, he could hype up something and my guild leader would try to hype it up to us. And you'd believe him because you're like, oh, my guild leader knows what he's talking about. Not realizing he just didn't, because his account wasn't at the point where he could understand what went into the things that Arnold would show. And that's one of the big things I've tried to do with my account at times is if I do show a counter video, I'll talk about, hey, I have this, like, it might not work if you don't have XYZ, right? So there's just some of that where I have a lot of regret over, kind of staying in some of those guilds too long to where it stagnated my account. And if I had made moves earlier, I could have been in a much better position now. Again, I don't know that, right? It's all like, hey, shit in one hand, regret in the other, and see which one fills up first. Like, I don't know what to tell you guys. I just, some interesting things to think about. But the lesson being, sometimes it can be tough, but moving guilds could be the best thing for your account. And honestly, even at times, moving guilds can reinvigorate you. Whether you're getting burned out in your current guild because it's too much for you, so you're going to move to a more casual guild where the demands are a lot less, that can be really healthy for your account. And in other cases, you're going to you're burning out because you're doing too much in your guild. You know, I remember there was a point where I was the only officer who would communicate territory battle and territory war commands. That was way too much. And I was burning out. I needed that help, and there's nobody who was willing to, you know, put in that effort to help in those situations. When that happens, right? Sometimes you just need to find a new guild. Like I see it all the time where officers are looking for a new guild because they just get burnt out of having to give those commands. And so, you know, sometimes leaving your guild works both ways, that you need a more competitive environment or you need a less stressful environment to flourish and continue playing. The final regret I have is Leviathan. It's not that I didn't obtain this, you know, when I got Leviathan, this is the only journey guide I've gotten day one. This is the only thing I've unlocked day one. Everything else I've had to wait for. Leviathan I had day one. And I had guessed wrong. I thought it would release immediately after that conquest. Like, hey, conquest is over. We're going to get the Leviathan event. And it was what, like a month and a half to 2 months after that final Fury class conquest that they released Leviathan. Well, I had spent so much additional crystals, energy. I was not doing certain refreshes. There was all of these things that I did not do in order to get myself prepared for this event. And one, the ship turned out to be terrible, which is, you know, hindsight's 2020 on that one. But it wasn't like I had it 7-star. I had it I think 4-star. I don't even think I had it 5 stars. So, I think this, I kind of got ahead of myself. I thought I was better than I was, where it's like, Phil, you're not capable of unlocking stuff day one. Your account is not capable of pulling this kind of stuff off. And I felt the impact of that for a little bit, where I felt my account really lagged behind because I'd wasted so much additional resources trying to rush to get ready for something that, had I taken my time on, I still could have gotten potentially day one, but more importantly, I would have had a better roster around it. And that kind of, the lesson there was just staying in my lane, recognizing what my account really is. When you try to overextend your account, you won't notice it right away. But you'll notice it when you pour all your resources into something and you realize it's still just not enough. You're still coming up short because it's not enough just to have one thing. And I feel that's where a lot of players have maybe, seen with Darth Revan at Relic 10. You can pour all your resources into that. There's a lot of people who probably are. And then they're still falling in, Fleet Arena, right? I've seen this plenty of times with players who invest everything into a singular team, right? Hey, I've got the resources. I'm going to build the Stranger team all to Relic 9. For someone like Tassanex and Arnold and Scribe, that makes sense. They have the resources to be able to do that. But for you at, say, 10 million GP, you still have all of these things where you're going to need those Relic 9 materials. And while they might be in more supply, that signal data isn't. Sometimes you get ahead of yourself, not thinking about the full picture, not thinking about, is my account really capable of doing this? Can I actually afford to make this purchase? Can I afford to, go after this early, spend those resources and then still continue on? The example to use there, think about going and buying a car. I could easily go buy a, $60,000 Ford F-150 when I was looking for a new car. That, could have fit into my budget at that time. It would not have fit my budget when Harper was born. It would not have fit my budget when Charlie was born. It would not fit my budget when Stella was just born. You might have the, the cash today, you might have the resources today, but when something changes, will you? Right? And that's kind of the mentality that I learned a little bit from that Leviathan debacle, was sometimes it's smarter just to kind of bide your time and wait and, let yourself get there naturally. And then what you can really spend. Then that you haven't overextended yourself and, can find that sweet spot of how to spend your resources in the best way possible. So I hope this helps you guys. Let me know your thoughts are down below. I love you all. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, my friends.